Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to another book review. This being October, I could think of no better book to review than the original Bram Stoker's Dracula. Like I said, this being October and the month of Halloween, the month of horror and spectacular delights of all shapes and sizes, I thought I would give my take and some thoughts on this book when it comes to dungeon mastering, and even a couple ideas for players as well. This book really should have been in the appendix in the Dungeon Master's Guide as suggested reading, especially, the obvious tie to vampires and things like that, and Transylvania, etc. But for Dungeon Masters, this book is so valuable, not just because of the things I just mentioned, but because most of the book is written in the form of journal entries, newspaper clippings, things like that would be so useful for a dungeon master to create as handouts, not taken directly from this book, but the style of writing and the idea of writing up handouts, writing out notes, scraps of paper, things, basically clues, if you will, for the dungeon master to leave for his players to find along the way throughout their adventure, their campaign, even if it's a one-shot. Little bits like that from this book, those kinds of ideas, receipts, anything you can write down on paper or type up or print up to leave for your players to find and to study and to take home with them, and to look for the hidden clues in the words or the images, or what have you. Obviously, maps are always a good one too, but this book is so full of great ways and great ideas to create those little bitty clues, those little helpful nuggets of information for your players, especially this month being October, and a great many people are going to be breaking out their Call of Cthulhu books and things like that to play, whether it be a one-shot or start a campaign. I've read this book probably a dozen times over, and I believe the very first chapter starts in May, and oftentimes I would literally take this book out in May and start reading, but I would only read the pages that pertain to the actual day that they take place in the book until all the way to the end of the book. So I would just read a little bit of it at a time, a page here, or sometimes only a paragraph, because that's all it was, and then I'd go about my day. But I've always had this book to come back to when it comes to the notions of horror and ghost stories and things like that for my campaigns. There's always a place to add a little bit of horror and mystery and the supernatural in just about every game I play. Even if I'm playing Traveler or Boot Hill or Gamma World or something like that, I like to bring in those superstitious notions, those fears of the unknown, all of those goodies that just add to any game you're playing, regardless of the genre. There's so many different ways you can use these nuggets, these helpful tips, and these little clues and informational dumps that you can add to your players' arsenal of tools to fight the big bad, at the end of your campaign, or the end of your one shot, or even just the end of, this part of the campaign. I'm not saying that every campaign or adventure needs to lead to a vampire, but there's nothing wrong with having those in there. In my campaign with my son, he, after I think it was 6 months, finally got to battle the vampiress that was in charge of the vampires in the area that his characters were living in and roaming around, and they finally got to it. And of course I left room for the return of vampires, even though they supposedly killed off the head vampire of that area. Doesn't mean there aren't vampires elsewhere, doesn't mean that I won't throw vampires again. And all of it sprung from reading this book. There's other vampire stories I could recommend, but this, as we all know, is king, top of the heap, the greatest vampire the story of the greatest vampire hunters ever. Van Helsing and the gang did what needed to be done, and at the end of the day, no one would believe them, but they knew they had their memories and their little bit of notes and journal entries and logs and things like that they kept to the bitter end to, eventually, I guess compile this book if you want to look at it that way. But now for the players, just reading this book alone should get you into the mood. This is October. Halloween's, only a few weeks away, and we only get a short amount of time to indulge in the darker aspects of fiction and literature and gaming before it's on to the more cheerful and more positive holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas. Regardless of how you feel about those holidays, there's millions upon millions of people out there who are gonna wish you a Merry Christmas, and I hope you have the decency to at least acknowledge their good thoughts and wish it right back to them. But for you players out there, if you really want to get into the spirit of vampire hunting and October and monsters and werewolves and ghosts and ghoulies and all that good stuff, pick up a copy of Dracula. This book has been around for over 100 years, and it's still the single one book you need to read if you want to really get into the mood of, and I realize it's not technically a medieval setting, but so many of the things and moods and feelings and the atmosphere, it's all here, ready to go. Pick it up, read it. If you don't enjoy it, you could at least say you've read Dracula once. I'm gonna probably pick it up, finish reading it this week, just because it is that time of year, and hopefully I'll get my son to pick it up, although he's got a stack of books left over from Christmas for him, that he asked for his birthday to read. But I hope you guys, even those of you who've read it before, give it a chance. It's out there, and it's up there at the top for a reason. And seriously, if you haven't read this book at least once in your lifetime, you really have missed out. But it's not too late. Not too late to go out, find a used bookstore. Don't buy it online. It's just you'll end up paying top dollar for it. And really, if you pay more than $5 for a copy of Dracula, you're being taken for a ride, and not the good kind. So that pretty much sums it up. I don't want to give away too many spoilers. I mean, obviously they kill Dracula at the end. I mean, that's no surprise. And as for movies, honestly, don't watch the movie called Bram Stoker's Dracula, because it has almost nothing to do with the book. I don't know how they got away with that. If you want to watch a really good rendition of Dracula, look for the Christopher Lee original version. That, I think, in my opinion, is the closest you're going to get. And even then, it's not going to be 100% accurate. And you know me, I like things to be as accurate as possible. So if you really want, the real deal, Bram Stoker's Dracula. One of my favorites. Top 20 books I own. And I've literally had this book since I was my son's age. And I've read it, like I said, possibly a dozen times. So if you have and you'd enjoyed it, please, start up a conversation in the comment section. Let me know what you think. If you're going to read it again this year, I hope so. Give me the thumbs up, because you won't be sorry when you're done. So until later tonight, when I'll be making another video for you guys with all my friends, have a great day. Have a, enjoy the season. Enjoy the holiday. It's coming up. Don't take it too seriously. None of us should. It's all about the candy. So until next time, folks, we love you. See you real soon. Bye-bye.